Hello everybody, today I'm going to be giving you guys a new YouTube video. It has been a while since I have uploaded and I have apologized. I hope you guys had a great holidays like I did. My holidays were absolutely fantastic and I hope yours were as well. So today we're going to be getting back into the schedule because I was kind of before just, throwing videos out there, oh, today's whatever day, here's some code to look at and look at it, and I was doing some tutorials, but they weren't following the schedule that I had originally made, and I like following schedules because it keeps everything nice and clean. So I'm going to try to get back to the schedule, and since today is Wednesday, or it will be when I have this all edited and uploaded, I thought I would do a PHP video. I'm going to be redoing the introduction to object-oriented programming in PHP because the first video I did, I believe, was very unintuitive, and I don't like the way I did it. I didn't go in depth with it. It was kind of just like, oh, look at this code, it's so amazing, and you were just left to study it. I didn't really go into detail, and I don't like that, so I'm doing another video for you guys, and hopefully this one is much more extensive in object-oriented programming. So I've kind of written up this little, PHP script. It will be in the description below in case you want it for reference. But I just listed some interesting things here of why object-oriented programming in PHP is absolutely fantastic. And one of the reasons, and we're not really going to go into these today, we're just introducing ourselves into object-oriented programming. We're not going to go full-blown into the terms and the terminology and all the code that we're going to be doing. We will get into that eventually, but one thing is called polymorphism, and it allows your code to be much more concise and more efficient, allowing variables to act as objects. Where you normally use maybe a switch statement, instead of using a switch statement, you can use one line of code using polymorphism instead. Another great aspect of object-oriented programming is it has the ability to be much more organized into classes. So let's say, we wanted to we wanted to make a CMOS, central management system, basically, an admin panel where people could go in and post on a website or something. And this would be a major PHP project, and you'd need many things. You'd need a login system, a registration system, a class to or a code to handle database handlers. You'd need something to actually post to, and if you wanted to do this in procedural programming, oh yeah, you'd have about 10 million lines of code. And then say you wanted to go modify, say, your login function. Oh, have fun looking at your computer screen for about 2 hours trying to find line 3096 just to find one piece of code that you wrote in procedural code. Whereas if you wrote it in object-oriented programming, you should just go, oh, hey, look, there's a login class, and I can just go in there and modify my methods in that class instead of looking through 10,000 lines of code just to find out where my method was in procedural, or rather function. Another great point of object-oriented programming is encapsulation, which allows you to conceal code from other classes that either don't need it or shouldn't have access to it. And this isn't just for, this isn't really for, protecting information for privacy, but mainly to keep people from modifying things that don't need to be modified. And if they do modify them, they could screw the whole program up. So say you were working on a big SDK, a software development kit, or you had a big development team, you could allow objects in a class to, or properties rather, to be, they couldn't be affected by external classes. They can only be modified in that class because you don't need to modify them in those classes. They're there for that class. Why allow other classes to modify it and modify its behavior when it doesn't need to, when only that class needs it? This is what encapsulation does. And these are just some of the reasons that object-oriented programming is a better approach. However, this doesn't always mean that you need object-oriented programming for projects. If you're doing something smaller and you don't need, say, polymorphism or encapsulation or whatever, you can stick with the procedural approach. It's fine. You don't always need object-oriented programming, and this is kind of a debate that happens. There's a lot of debate over object-oriented, and, oh, should I do procedural or object-oriented programming? I prefer object-oriented, but it I don't know. I'm not going to go into the full what it all is about in this video. So some of the basic terminology you might want to know for this video is objects, constructor, and an instance. So an object is basically an entity of code. A class is an example of an object. So right here we have a class person. This is an object. A person is an object, an entity. It's not well, in real life, a person is not an entity of code. It's an entity of, the universe. But in here, everything is an entity of code. A constructor is known as the class constructor, is the main function ran when a class is called. So when a class is called or an instance of a class is created, it's automatically going to execute the construct function. You don't need a construct function. You can just access a class normally. But when you create an instance of it, nothing will happen until you actually call a method inside of that class or go to modify or view a property in that class. But if you have a class constructor, even if you don't access a property or a method right away, something will happen, and that something is whatever is in your block of code for your construct function. An instance, this is kind of not really one you need to know, but I thought I'd throw it in there anyways because I will be using the term a lot. But it's basically just calling a class or creating an entity of a class. So right here in my example down here, we're creating a variable named John and we're assigning him a new person. So right here, we are creating an instance. We are creating a new object of the class person. Now here's an example of um, why object-oriented programming would be useful. So say we wanted to create a person, okay, and we wanted this person to have a name, age, gender, and we wanted him to introduce himself and say, hey, my name is whatever, I am this years old, and I am a male or female. If we took the procedural approach, we would have to do many more lines of code, but with object-oriented programming, we create a class and then we just create multiple instances, of that class. We don't need to re-inhibit the same code over and over, and this is where the dry rule comes in. Do not repeat yourself. It's called dry, and it's a very uh, fundamental thing in programming is do not repeat yourself. Don't copy and paste. If you can make things simple for yourself, make things simple for yourself. Don't make things more complicated than it needs to be. Because when you get programming into big projects, things are already complicated. Don't make them even more complicated. So that's basically it. So what we're doing here is we're creating a class person. Okay, that's very intuitive so far, I believe. And we're right here now, we're initiating three properties. Now, a class has things called properties and it also has methods. These are known as methods and these are known as properties. Properties is just a fancy name for variables in a class, and you can think of a method as a function in the class. Now you'll see these public keywords in here. We're not going to worry about those yet. We're going to get into those later, but those are basically viewability modifiers. So we can change this to private, and basically only this class will be able to access it, not outside the class or other classes inheriting from it. Only this class will be able to see it, and then there's protected, and there's a few different keywords, but we're not going to get into that. We're just going to leave this public for now because we're not worrying about encapsulation yet. So yeah, we've initiated three public variables. And then we've got the construct function here. Now the construct function has to be named underscore underscore construct, or that is the function or the method that a class looks for when it's called upon. And you have to use that exact same syntax. If you call it just construct with, one underscore or no underscores, it won't work. You have to have both underscores for it to work. Now we have these parameters. Now what you can do in a class constructor is you can put parameters, and basically when you call a class, you can use these parameters when you're calling the class, and the construct function will do something with them. This is why the class constructor is such a useful piece of implementation in PHP, or in any language for that matter. So when you go into it, what we're basically doing here is we're not doing anything majorly important, but we're just assigning the public variables that we've created up here to the parameters that have been passed here. You might not get this so far. It might be a little bit unintuitive. It's starting to get a little bit unintuitive, and object-oriented programming is a hard concept to wrap your head around once you get deep into it, but you will get it as we go further in. Here we've got a method, and all this method is doing is it's printing out, hi, my name is, and then it'll print off the public name. I am public age, years old, and I am A, and then it'll print out the public gender. Okay, so that's the end of the class. We're done with that entity of code. We're done with that object. Now we need to go ahead and call that object, because if we didn't have, let's say we didn't have this, nothing would happen. It would just be like, okay, we've created a person, but we don't have any instances of this person, so there's nothing here. We have something, but we don't have anything to do. So basically, what we're doing here is we're creating an instance of this object. We're creating a person. Think of us as the God, and we are creating people. So we're creating John, and we're storing him in a variable named John, and we're creating him as a new person. He's not a new cow. He's not a new, mammal. He's a new person. Person to mammal, but whatever. And so we've assigned the first parameter, which is John, which is his name. We've assigned the second parameter. I just came up with this at random, but he's 34 years old and he's a male. And then we're going to create another object, and we're going to name her Julie. And yeah, we have her name. We have her name Julie, and then we have that she's, say, 22, and that she is a female. And then these two last lines of code down here is basically just calling the method inside of the class. And this is what's interesting about object-oriented programming, because with this, we can use these little arrows and we can access properties or methods inside of a class. So we can go ahead and access, if we wanted to say John's age, we can do echo John age. And that would basically print off his age property in the class, which was set in our parameters by our class constructor. But we're not going to do that. But this is accessing method as indicated by the brackets. There's no parameters, so we can just leave these brackets as they are. And basically, if we were to go ahead and run this script right now, which I am not going to do because I'm not setting up a patch sheet and all that, fun stuff. But basically, this would just print out two lines on the page that would say, hey, my name is John. I am, 34 years old, and I am a male. And then it would also print right below it, hi, my name is Julie. I am 22 years old, and I am a female. And that's all it would do. Now, that's a very, not a very practical example. That's just an introductory into object-oriented programming to try to get you to understand kind of what's going on. This isn't a practical application of object-oriented programming at all. This is just to kind of show you what's involved in the basic syntax of it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please go ahead and give it a like, comment any questions or comments you may have on the video, and subscribe. I know I've been getting a lot of questions to, finish off or keep going with the zombie mapping tutorial series, but I'd like to get into other videos as well, right? And that's kind of why I'm getting back into a schedule. So I will be getting back into that. Now, one other question I'd like to address is I've got a lot of people ask me to do the virtual world series again. And the problem with that is I don't have Flash anymore, and ActionScript 2 has been discontinued, and that's what I've been doing. And ActionScript 3 I couldn't care to learn because I hate Flash. Flash is annoying to work with as a developer, and I might continue it if I can, but there are no promises regarding the virtual world series. Once again, if you enjoy the video, leave it a like, comment any questions or comments you guys may have, and tomorrow, on Friday, we will be getting back into the zombie mapping tutorial series where we will be making a room. As for the PHP series, next we will be probably going further in depth into object-oriented programming, maybe talking a little bit about polymorphism, like an example, and organizing code.